Welcome to the Pen Leader Podcast, where strategic leaders get straight to the topics, strengthening our awareness and sharpening our minds. The Pen Leader Podcast is produced by Roar, a production division of Mays & Associates Ltd. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Now here is your award-winning host, Dr. Shanda Gore.
And welcome back to the Pen Leader Podcast. Today we have a wonderful guest I've known for a number of years. I'm excited to have her on the show and talk about all the different projects she's working on. But our podcast today is called Sharing and Building Up, and she's been doing a lot of that work. Her name is Tonge Mack, and she is the founder and CEO of Tonge Mack Enterprises, empowering next dimension leaders. This organization has three primary goals, and that is to provide women and girls with the empowering tools necessary to elevate and amplify their voices, particularly but not exclusively in education, assist companies and organizations with innovative, unconventional leadership skills to unleash their highest potential, and help students and parents navigate higher education from recruitment to graduation. Carol is a well-respected educator and powerhouse behind her brand, End Polite Silence. Love that title. Carol believes in the power of real sisterhood and helping women recognize they are good enough, whether they are holding a broom or a gavel. She is currently an assistant dean at the University of Cincinnati, where she's the long-standing commitment of empowering, mentoring, and serving students from enrollment to graduation. Carol is a native of the Caribbean island of Antigua and grew up in the South Bronx, New York City. She's the co-founder of the UC Black Women on the Move Employee Resource Group, the former state co-chair of the American Council on Education, and the member of the Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. She is married to an amazing world-renowned chemist, professor, and the dean at the University of Cincinnati. Carol has two children and is enjoying her blessed nest. So welcome, Carol.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your time today.
I was looking at this bio, and that's just some of the pieces that you're working on. So much empowerment there. Amazing. I'm going to ask you the question, what is your passion? What drives you?
Well, there are a few things that certainly drive me sometimes on a daily basis, sometimes it's monthly basis, but I would say overall, there are three major things that I'm passionate about. First and foremost, I'm passionate about women. I'm passionate about women, definitely those in domestic violence situations. And maybe situation is not the right word, but the domestic violence in general. I continue to learn that, there's such an increase year by year. And we're looking at this from a national level and then from an international level. And from the data that I've seen, there's so many women and girls that's impacted by domestic violence. I think I looked it up, the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, and found that 1 in 4 women experience physical or sexual violence. And it doesn't start necessarily at 18, but women impacted between the ages of 18 to 24. Doesn't mean that over 24 it doesn't happen, but I am really passionate about helping those women get to their next level, whatever that is for them, get to their next. And so that's one of the things I'm very, very passionate about. I'm also really passionate, as you know, about students' college success. So if the student believes that they want to go to college, how do I come out on the other side and become the successful person that you want to be, but also when your parents set out on this journey and this, having certain goals for you, college achievement or college success was on their minds for sure. And, how do I get you there as the student? As you know this more than anybody else, I love, love, love women creating and designing their own non-negotiables or their own core values. I call them their own commandments. Mm-hmm. So as you know, I've developed these 10 commandments for women, which I share with other women what my 10 commandments are, and then have them share, okay, what do you think you want to do for yourself? Mm-hmm. What are the rules that you would like to create for yourself, for yourselves that society told you many, many years ago from birth, what you should be and who you should be? And can you imagine what it'd be like if you developed your own core values and your own commandments? So I would say those are the three things that are near and dear to my heart, and that I'm completely passionate about.
What's amazing about what you're saying is that you've been doing this for so long, but you're across a number of areas. You're talking about education, you're talking about domestic violence, you're talking about those are two different worlds. Sometimes they don't blend together, but there's a commonality there that women are impacted in both the areas of education as well as in domestic violence situations. And no matter where you are, you meet
Hmm.
them where they are and then you help them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think sometimes we forget, and as I mentioned, between the ages of 18 to 24, as you know, for some women, that's really, if they decide to go to college, that's really at that prime college period, whether it's undergrad or graduate school, professional school, that's really when it's also happening to women. And even in education, where people think, oh, surely that person's in college, surely that may not be happening because they're now quote unquote educated. But as you know, education by itself is not going to save you.
Mhm.
Because you now have a college degree doesn't mean that you will never be in a domestic violence situation. So we need to educate women and girls very early, way before they get to this 18 to 24-year-old time period.
What would you say is your most prized accomplishment? You've done so much work with writing books and reaching goals and helping others reach goals. What would you say is
Hmm.
your most prized accomplishment?
This was a very difficult one, let me say to you. This was very difficult because I don't know if I ever thought of, man, this is my prized accomplishment. I'm going to say something a little unconventional, but I would say my prized accomplishment, and I think I mentioned this to you before we started, was the ability and the opportunity and granted the honor to take care of my aunt before she passed. I didn't see it as an accomplishment before, and it was such a prized, it was a gift to be able to take care of her within the last 2 weeks of her life. I've taken care of her for a long time, and she succumbed, to cervical cancer that then spread. And then, so for the past 3 years, I've been going and visiting and helping her. I must say that that was such a gift, and it's now considered a prized possession of mine.
Mhm.
To have the gift to say, this person took care of me when I was a child. This person took care of me as an adult. And here now I have the opportunity to take care of her in the most precious moments. Not at birth, of course, but now that she is transitioning to the other side to meet her older sister, to meet with her mother, and how can I help her in every way possible get to peace, whatever peace is for her. And I just consider that to be a prize.
That's very special. I think sometimes, unfortunately, especially if you're taking care of a parent, or if you're taking care of a relative, and you're juggling so much, I think some people, they may not see it's such a, I wouldn't say a burden, but it's such a challenge that you don't see it that way because
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot to handle, and some people need to break themselves. But
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
that's very special. No, nothing is scripted or expected. I mean, what I find is that leaders in their particular area, they actually define their accomplishments different. And so that's important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that says a lot about leadership in itself is when you say, this is in my world, this is how I define accomplishment, and this is how I
Mm-hmm.
define
Mm-hmm.
what my passion is. And that encourages others to really think out of the box of what someone might expect them to say. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I think sometimes we go to whether it's a job or a position or a title or something at a place of worship, or I just didn't have one of those things. Yes, are there some accomplishments I've had in my life? Of course. As a first generation college student, really getting my undergrad degree was certainly a prized accomplishment. Getting to the position that I currently have at work was an accomplishment because I prayed on it for many years. I've had some great mentors and coaches over time.
Excellent. Now, this leads me into my next question, which is really about these personal experiences that you have harnessed and that you have pulled and then drawn inspiration from. And that's from your book, Being Bernadette, From Polite Silence to Finding the Black Girl Magic Within. What lessons came from that book? What led you to that next step to help women and girls?
I would say for me, it was personal and professional experiences that really, led me to write my book, but also to share some of the lessons that I had there. And I think as women leaders, we underestimate our power and our courage. And so one of the lessons I shared in my book is about surrounding ourselves with the right people, the right sisters. I think in my bio you mentioned about real sisterhood. Your real sisters will take care of you. The women who are near and dear to your heart and have your best interest at heart will also take care of you in regardless of the situation. And so one of the lessons I shared is really about surrounding ourselves by the right people. As you know, Dr. Gore, I don't sit and eat and mingle and mix with just anybody. I consider my time to be extremely, extremely precious. We have one life to live, just one. We don't get nine like cats. We get one life, and it has to be. And this life is a gift, and I try to explain this to my daughter as well about who you share your time with, because you don't want to be on your deathbed one day and say, if I can just get back that 30 minutes
Mm.
that I did X, Y, and Z, or that hour that I spent arguing with the person who was driving by because, they honked at you a little bit harder, or, whatever it was. Time is just really precious for me. And so I protect my time. So you may not see me out here, doing a whole bunch of things. I'm very, very cautious about who I'm with and who I sit at the table with, because not every table is for you.
Mm.
And I think as women, we need to understand you don't need to be at every table. I think there's this societal norm that, oh, women, we must be at the table. But what if that table is not for you? Maybe they're offering crumbs at that table. Is that what you would like for yourself? Not
Mm.
for me. I want all of the potatoes. I want the salad. I want the half a glass of
That's right.
wine. I want all the great things, right?
That's right.
And so I would like to be served what everyone else has been served, or possibly another dish if possible. And so I think for me, that's one of the life lessons, is really surrounding myself with the right people. I think another lesson that I would like to share, I know as a society, we rely so much on your worth in reference to your title, the job title, the position. And we have to remember that you cannot take that position or title with you.
Mm.
I was speaking to a friend of mine the other day. She and I, we typically walk in one of the cemeteries here in Cincinnati. It's a beautiful place, very peaceful, as you can imagine. And one of the things we talked about one day is that on the gravestones that we actually looked at, there was nothing about a job. There was nothing about a title. There was nothing about a position. I would say 99.9% of the tombstones we looked at as we were walking had something to do with peace and love and family. That 0.1% or point whatever the math is, it was for those folks who were in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of them, the title said like private or officer or captain, whatever. But no one else had that.
Mm-hmm.
It was about peace, love, family, and resting in peace. And I think we need to really be careful that we're not thinking that a title makes you better.
Mm.
A title makes you somehow above the others, because it does not. And so you have to think about, when you no longer have that title, then who are you? Do you now think of yourself less than because you don't have that title? And so we just have to be very careful when we see a position, a title, or a job, just making sure that we're not thinking it's defined, it defines us,
Mm-hmm.
or that's who we are.
You bring up a very good point here. I was having a conversation just a couple of weeks ago, and there was a kind of a desperation in the voice of the person about a title and how critically important it was to have a title. They were out of state, and it was just this open discussion, right? And as I listened, and I thought to myself, that title changes probably in the next couple months. And depending on how leadership goes, that title either goes away or a different title comes in its place. And the more you tie yourself to the title, the more you are bound to whatever that is. And so that
That's right.
lets it define you. I think it's important that if you've got your education and there's a title that goes with your education, you should own it and never shy away from it, especially if it's going to make somebody else feel better because you downplay it so they can feel better about themselves. I advise people not to do that.
Of course.
But what I do tell them is that the title that you think is the prime, the one that you want, there are things that go with it, whatever those things are defined. And
Mm-hmm.
you may not want those things. You think that the grass is greener, but there's a saying, the grass is not necessarily greener. It could be spray painted.
Mm, mm, mm. You listen, this is a mic drop moment, and you're preaching, and it's not even Sunday. Wow. It may be spray painted. I love that. Can I use it?
Yeah, of course you can, my friend.
Absolutely. I'll make sure I mention your name. Yes.
Yes. Uh, the challenges that you've talked about, what you've been through, you've harnessed those and said, you know, this is part of who I am. This, if you read the book, it's an amazing story of overcoming one challenge over another and how you turn that into a learning experience that then helps mold you where you are today to help others. And that
Mm-hmm.
to me says a lot. I was someone was talking about the word fail. I don't know if you've heard this one too, but it's really about the opportunity to learn. And it's a practice. So if you keep failing, you don't want to keep failing at the same thing.
That's right.
That's bad.
Exactly. Not at the same thing. That's
No,
right.
you want to learn your lesson, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And manage it and move forward. Yes.
That's right. That's right. Tell me, what are the characteristics, especially when you speak to leaders and you've been a leader and you talk to other leaders? Can you tell me
Mm-hmm.
what are the 3 characteristics of the most effective leaders that you've worked with and for?
For me, I believe that a leader, those leaders who see your humanity, those are the people that I'm looking for. Because, a lot of people have leadership positions, leadership titles, but how many of them actually see you, Dr. Gore, see me, Carol, as the human being that I am? I think we've moved so far away from the human factor that we begin to see people as that position or that title or that amount of money that person's making, and we just don't look at the person's humanity, because we would treat each other differently if we did. And so I'm looking for a leader, or when I see leaders, I'm looking for someone who actually sees me and sees my humanity, and vice versa. I see that person's humanity as well. As I said, I believe we've moved away from that. I think another thing for me is leaders who admit that they've made a mistake and take accountability and responsibility for it.
Mm-hmm.
There are just so many leaders who make errors, and they want to make others believe, well, I am a leader. I don't make mistakes. If I make them, they're in private. No one knows about them. And so you have young leaders coming up thinking, that's what I want to be.
Mm.
But what you're seeing is not realistic. And so leaders who say, you know what, I made a mistake. I made an error. I'm going to, push my shoulders up, push my shoulders back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to accept responsibility publicly for the decision that I made. It was not the best decision to make at the time, but I made the decision based on the information that I had. And then you said, okay, here's how I'm going to correct this error. Here are the 3 or 4 people that's going to help me manage this and move forward. I think sometimes so many leaders, they make mistakes and no one knows. Yes, I'm not saying to put all of your business in public. That's not what I'm saying. But if it's very clear that an error was made here, as a leader, you need to accept responsibility and be accountable for your actions. And, I say this to my team a lot. I also believe in leaders who don't feel the need to be needed.
Mm.
There are so many leaders who think, well, I am the boss, I am the leader, I am the supervisor, I'm the manager, and I'm needed. They need me. I tell my team, I said, listen, when I go on vacation, you shouldn't need me, because I don't pick up my phone. I said, if there's a fire, you need to call the fire department, because it's just not going to be me. I'm going to be on somebody's island, if not my own, and I can't help you. And so I've told my team many, many times that when I leave this position, whether I'm on vacation, whether I'm taking another position, if I'm out of the office, I'm ill, whatever it is, you shouldn't need me. You're smart enough to figure out, okay, what's the next step? What do I need to do here? Do I need to talk to another colleague? Do I need to reach out to campus partners? Do I need to reach out to someone who works at another institution who has a similar title or job that I have? Is there a national organization? But there's always someone on campus that you can really reach out to. And so you don't really, at the end of the day, you don't really need me if I'm not around. If there's something you need, of course, I'm going to assist and I'm going to help, I'm going to manage. Maybe both of us can come up with a solution. But at the end of the day, as a leader, you should not be in a position where if you leave, the entire team the entire team falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's not a leader. You've set it up so that they need you. And it's not about you. It's about, at least at an institution, it's about the students and getting them to the graduation line and to setting them up for success.
Well, let me just say this. I think that what you just said goes across not just campus life, but across a
Hmm.
number of organizations. We work with so much with executive coaching, and we talk about that. I know there's a level of comfort to feel needed, but you're not doing yourself the needed rest to do that. And I think at the heart of our pin leader, we do talk about those pins that hold the fabric together. Well, there's also, you want to sew, you want to create a culture that you're not the only pin holding everything
Hmm.
together. So
Hmm.
I think that speaks
Hmm.
value. I just can't thank you enough for those words of wisdom right there. That's a whole show in itself right there.
But I think we just think of leaders in certain ways, and sometimes they act in certain ways, and so many times it's the ego, right? It's not because the job isn't getting done. Some people's egos are so large that they feel the need to be needed. Like, no, they need me. They need me to be there all the time. They need me because they have questions. They need me. Well, what happens when they've learned the job and they no longer need you? What does that mean
Mm-hmm.
for you, the individual, supervisor or boss or leader, whatever you call yourself? What does that really mean? Does that mean that you're now gonna wreak havoc or change the job description so now they need you again? And also check your ego at the door because it's not about you.
Yes, I think that I think about another situation, which that's another show. I'm gonna have you come back. We're gonna talk about succession planning. When you say you're leaving,
Hmm.
and then don't hang on because you haven't figured out your own personal plan.
That's
Which
right.
it takes planning and it takes intentional diligence to vacate in a way that helps the team. So. But I can't thank you enough for coming on and just speaking on all those words and sharing your experiences and your personal experiences as well. Thank you so much, Carol.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate you and thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, thank you. And I think again to our audience that's actually in different countries, we appreciate those listeners and all the states that we're in and people's life experiences and them sharing back concerning Pen Leader Podcast. So, we ask our listeners please share, subscribe, and as always, until next time.
The Pen Leader Podcast is hosted by Dr. Shanda Gore and brought to you by Mays & Associates Ltd., creating customized solutions for growth in the areas of leadership development, strategic planning, and culture building. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Pen Leader Podcast and share with others.